Welcome to our seminar on income tax. This time, our topic is about BIR Form 1702RT, or the regular income tax for corporations. So, the form that we will be using is BIR Form 1702, and this form was enhanced on January of 2018. So, for this form, this is annual income tax return for corporations, partnership, and other non-individual taxpayers subject only to regular income tax rate. Because even if you are a corporation, but you have a different source of income, just like non-stock non-profit corporations with other kind of activity, you will be using a different kind of form, 1702EX. But for mix with exempt income and taxable income, the form that will be used is the 1702MX, or the mix. Okay, so the instructions for the 1702 for you to fill up is to enter all record information in capital letters, mark applicable boxes with an X. 2 copies must be filed with the BIR and 1 held by the taxpayer. Okay, so let's start how to fill up this form 1702. So for line number 1, we have for the calendar year or taxable year. What does this mean? Corporations are allowed to use fiscal year. Calendar year is a taxable year consisting of 12 months. The beginning start with January and end in December. So that is a 12-month period, one taxable year. Corporations are allowed to use fiscal year. And what is this fiscal year? Fiscal year is also one taxable year consisting of 12 months, but the beginning is that January. So if it will not begin in January, it will not end in December. So if your fiscal year begins with February, it will end January the following year. The 12-month period is counted beginning the month other than January, but it is still 12 months to comprise the one taxable year. Okay, so corporations has the option to use also calendar year. So if the corporation is using the calendar year, you check the box for calendar year, or you check the other box for fiscal year. And then line number 2, we have the year ended. What is this year ended? Month and then the year. So this year, our income tax due is 2019. So you have to put there, if you are using the calendar year ending December 31, then you put there December 2019, your ending year. Line number 3 is amended return, yes or no. I have discussed with you in our first blog that the amended return means that you already have filed an original return, the same return, but you have to adjust because you have find that something that you have to adjust or to correct. Then you file again the same return that you have filed before. That is what we call as amended return. If that is the case, you are going to file an amended return. You are going to Xerox the original return that you filed and attach it to the amended return when you file it with the BIR. Line number 4, short period return. Short period return means it is not 12 months. One taxable year is 12 months. So if the period covered by your income tax return is not 12 months, we call it short period return. Number 5, we have alphanumeric tax code. This alphanumeric tax code, IC 055, means minimum corporate income tax, or MCIT. And another for the domestic corporation, because our income tax return that we are using now is the 1702 RT for the domestic corporations and for the resident for foreign corporation, then we will be using the alphanumeric tax code of IC010 for the domestic corporations in general. If we will be using the resident foreign corporations in general, we will be using IC070, that is in general the resident foreign corporations. For the part 1 background information, line number 6, we have taxpayer identification number. Where are you going to get this tax identification number? You have to look at the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission registration of your corporation, because that is the original tax identification number issued to you by the SEC, and that is your permanent tax identification number. Okay, so you have to put it here. Only the first 9 digits of the number of your tax identification number. Why? The default here is the 00. Why? Because this pertains to the branch code. And the rule in filing the income tax is that you are going to file your income tax return in the main office. So that it is already default is the 00, meaning you are filing your income tax return in your main office. You are not supposed to file your income tax return in your branches. And then we have the line number 7, the RDO code. So RDO code can also be taken from your certificate of registration. Line number 8, we have the registered name. Enter only 1 letter per box using capital letters. Okay, so if you have the name in your Securities and Exchange Commission certificate, then you have to copy that, but you have to fill this with a capital letter. Registered address indicate complete address. If the registered address is different from the current address, go to the RDO to update registered address by using BR form number 1905. BR form 1905 is the form that you will be using to update your information in the RDO. But since this is a return for the corporation, going to the RDO to the BIR is not enough. Why? Because you will be required to go first to the Securities and Exchange Commission, because the Securities and Exchange Commission is the regulatory body for all corporations. You are going to go there and then change your address. How are you going to change the address? Have a board resolution, secretary certificate that you are going to change your address. Once you have the amended articles of incorporation with a new address, then it's the time that you go to the BIR, update your information, fill out form 1905 in order that you can change now your address. Do not change your address in your income tax return without first updating your registration with the BIR. If during the filing still you will not be able to change your address, then use the old address. Line number 10, we have the date of incorporation or organization. Please take note. This date of incorporation or organization is your original organization. I have found so many corporations using the amended or the date of organization. If ever they change their name and then they have the amended articles of incorporation with the new name, they change also their date of incorporation. No, it should not be. Your date of incorporation is your date of the original incorporation with the SEC, not on your amended articles of incorporation. So date of incorporation or organization is your original as recorded or as registered in the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then you have your contact number and your zip code. The zip code is coming from our standard list. So you just copy where your address is situated or located. And then we have the email address. One reminder that I can give you in this email address. I have experiences with my clients. Use your own email address. Do not choose accommodation email. Or if you have a new consultant and then your consultant will use their email address, and then the following year you have another, you terminate the services. If you use the email address, then you have some problem, especially with the confirmation. Method of deductions, you have two options. The first is the itemized deduction under Section 34A of the NIRC. These are the itemized deductions, which has you can have different kind of deductions or expenses, and you can also have a standard optional standard deduction, which is 40% of your gross income. We will discuss that later on. This is the difference between the 40% of gross income as compared to the individual optional standard deduction, which is 40% of income. And then we have part 2, which is the total tax payable. In this line number 14, we have the tax due, meaning in this case, we already have computed the tax due. When we say we have computed the tax due, we already know the total sales, the direct cost that we claim, the cost of sales or the cost of services, and then we already have the gross income, and then we have the deductions. Or we already have the tax due if we know the total sales, and then we claim only the optional deductions of 40%, and then we have the 60% taxable, multiply it by the tax rate of 30%, then we have already the tax due. This is in line number 14 that we are going to fill out. Line number 15 is less total tax credit or payments. What are these total tax credits or payments? These are the withholdings or the advances that we pay in our quarterly return of the corporation that we file. Because this filing is annual, so the previous 3 quarters we already have filed unpaid taxes. So whatever taxes that we paid on the previous 3 quarters, we can claim that in the filing of the annual income tax return. So that is in line number 15. Line number 16, we have net taxable. We have net tax payable or overpayment. When is the overpayment? There is overpayment when the tax that we pay or the creditable withholding taxes exceed the tax due. Meaning the tax due is lower than the creditable withholding tax or the advance taxes that we paid on our quarterly returns. If you cannot pay on the deadline because of the COVID-19, because of the lockdown that we experienced, our original deadline is April 15, and it was extended by the government. So we have now the extension up to June this year. So even if it is past the April 15 deadline, still there is no penalty. But if we fail to pay on the new deadline of the government, then our tax payment will incur penalties. And what are the penalties? If the reason for not filing in time is not willful or justifiable, then we only have the 25% surcharge. But if it is intentional on the part of the taxpayer not to pay the tax on time, then it will incur 50% surcharge. Because of the train law in 2018, the 20% interest is reduced to 12%. So if you will not pay your income tax in June, then the interest of 12% will incur until you pay the full payment of your tax due. This compromise is graduated. This is schedular, and BIR has a schedule for this on the compromise payment based on your basic tax due. So you incur total penalties So you can just imagine that when you fail to pay your tax on time, it will incur immediately 3 kinds of penalties. And what are these 3 kinds of penalties? The surcharge, interest, and the compromise. Then line number 21, we have the total amount payable or overpayment. So what are the options that is given to you if there are overpayment? So you have 3 options. First is you can have it refunded. So if you want it to be refunded, then check the first box to be refunded. Second option is to be issued a tax credit certificate. So if you want to apply for a tax credit certificate, and what are you going to do with this tax credit certificate? You can use this as payment for your other tax obligation. Then you check the second box. And then other option, the third option, is to be carried over as tax credit for the next year or quarter. So if you don't want to choose the first 2 options, then you can use the third option, carried over to the next year or quarter. And you can note that this is a corporate income tax return. There are 2 persons required to sign. So the first is the president or the principal officer or the authorized representative. So you have here the title or signatory of the officer and the tax identification number. And the other officer required to sign is the treasurer or the assistant treasurer. So there is also a title of signatory and the tax identification number. Take note also that this income tax return 1702 is under the penalty of perjury when you signed it. And what does it say here? We declare under the penalties of perjury that the return and all its attachment have been made in good faith, verified by us, and to the best of our knowledge and belief are true and correct, pursuant to the provisions of the National Internal Revenue Code as amended and the regulations issued under authority thereof. So if signed by an authorized representative, indicate tax identification and attach authorization letter. Since this is a corporation, authorization letter means secretary certificate and board resolution. And then in part 3, we have the details of payment, the particular, the drawing agency. This is going to be filled up by the bank. This is all about the payment that you made for the payment of taxes. Okay, so we are now on the page 2. And first information required is the taxpayer identification number and the registered name. Okay, so for part 4, we have the computation of tax. Line number 27, required here is the sales, receipts, revenues, or fees. When we say sales, we mean sale of goods. When we say receipts, revenues, or fees, we mean services. Fees or coming from our business of selling our services. Line number 28, less sales returns, allowances, and discounts if there are any. And number 29, net sales, receipts, revenues, or fees. And then we have line number 30, we have less cost of sales and services. The less cost of sales services, this is very crucial for corporations. Why? Because we have to determine the cost of sales and services in order to determine the gross profit is subject to MCIT or the minimum corporate income tax, which is different from the individual. The individual has no minimum corporate income tax, unlike the corporations that is required by law to pay the minimum corporate income tax based on gross profit. That's why it's very crucial to determine what are the expenses, what are the items that should be included in the determination of the cost of sales of the direct cost in order to determine the gross profit. The law has some guidelines on the determination of the gross profit or gross income. So line number 31, we have gross income from operation. How do we arrive this gross income? Sales less cost of sales or services equals the gross income. Okay, so line number 33, add other taxable income not subjected to final tax if there are any. And line number 33, the total taxable income. So you have now the total taxable income, you have determined that. So less deductions allowed under existing law. Why? Because deductions has legal basis. Okay. So line number 34, we have ordinary allowable itemized deductions, which form part 6 of the Schedule 1, item 18. Okay. Line number 35, we have special allowable itemized deductions, and line number 36, we have NOLCO, or the net operating loss carryover. So we have now the total deductions under line number 37, or in case taxable under section 27A, which is the domestic corporation, and 28 is the resident foreign corporations, or number 38, the optional standard deduction, which is 40% of the income. Line number 39, we have net taxable income or loss. And then line number 40, we have applicable income tax rate. Why are here applicable income tax rate? The regular income tax rate is 30%. There are some companies who are availing or who are entitled to preferential rate, just like hospital and educational institution, which is subject to preferential rate of 10%. Why preferential rate of 10%? Because they are special corporations. When you say special corporations, the government give them sort of advantage because they are doing some service to the people with public interest. Line number 41, income tax due other than minimum corporate income tax. Okay. Line number 42 is the MCIT due 2% of item 33. What is this MCIT? This is the minimum corporate income tax, which is required by law that a corporation should pay, and the computation of this is sales less cost of sales equals gross income multiplied by the 2% rate equals the payable. Okay. So line number 43, tax due is the normal income tax due or the MCIT due, whichever is higher. Okay. So this is unique in corporations. Why? Because you have to compute the two rates of income tax, and then whichever is higher, the corporation should pay. Okay, so tax due, whichever is higher between the normal income tax due and the minimum corporate income tax due of 2% of gross income. Okay, so we have now here the less tax credit or payments attached proof. And then line number 44, we have the prior year's excess credits other than MCIT. Okay, so if you have prior year excess credits, meaning you have paid tax more than the tax due, then you have an excess tax credit. Line number 45, you have income tax payment under MCIT from previous quarters. And then line number 46, income tax payment under regular or normal rate from previous quarters. Line number 47, we have excess MCIT applied this current taxable year from part 6. And line number 48, creditable tax withheld from previous quarters per year form number 2307. Line number 49, creditable tax withheld per year form number 2307 for the fourth quarter. Line number 50, if you have a foreign tax credits, if applicable, then you have to claim also under line number 50. Line number 51, tax paid in return previously filed, if this is an amended return. And then line number 52, special tax credits if there are any, and also other tax credits. Line number 55, we have total tax credits or payments. And then line number 56, we have net tax payable or overpayment. Okay. So, for the MCIT or the minimum corporate income tax required for the corporations to pay, this minimum corporate income tax is mandatory for corporations who have been in operation for 3 years. So for the first 3 years, you're not going to pay the MCIT, but you are going to pay the MCIT on the 4th year. And then we have the part 5, the tax relief availment, if there are any. So we are now on the page 3 of our corporate income tax, which is the 1702 RT for the regular income tax rate. So you have to fill up again the taxpayer identification number and also the registered name. And then here we have the part 6, the schedules. And what are these schedules? This is the ordinary allowable itemized deductions. When we say ordinary allowable itemized deductions, this is the other kind of deductions that the corporation choose aside from the 40% optional standard deduction on gross income. So we need to start with the amortizations. Number one allowable itemized deduction is amortization. What do you mean by amortizations? Amortizations are you are going to amortize or claim the expense during the year, but it is not an outright claim of expenses. You have to amortize. Just like, for example, you have a leasehold. You make some improvements on your leased space. You rent a store or an office, and then you improve it. You spend so much for the improvement. Then you incur some expenses. But that improvement of yours will benefit during your leasehold terms. You rent for 3 years, and the leasehold that you make will also benefit the 3 years. So you are going to do is to amortize also the leasehold for 3 years. So if you have incurred 100,000 leasehold expenses, then divided it by the 3-year period of your lease contract, then you have the 1 year amortization for that leasehold that you can claim in the current year. Do not claim all the 100,000 all at once. Number 2 is bad debts. And what are bad debts? Bad debts are the allowance that you are going to claim if there are uncollected accounts that you cannot really claim because the person that owe or has the account with the company has no longer capable to pay for that obligation. So what are you going to do? Claim it as a bad debts. So that bad debts is a deduction from your income. Number 3 is charitable and other contributions. Since this is a corporation, and if your donation is not fully deductible given to an accredited BIN institutions, then your donations will be subjected to the limitations. For corporations, the limit is 5% of net income before deducting charitable contributions. So definitely, if you have no income, your net loss, then you cannot claim charitable contributions. Number 4 is depletion. What is this depletion all about? This depletion is about you have mineral resources, and that mineral resources will be depleted or will be exhausted after a certain year. Then the government will give you an allowance so that after the exhaustion of that mineral resources, you already have the allowance. So this depletion is the exhaustion of mineral resources, and the amount is determined by the accounting standards, so that the allowance of the company, especially mining companies, when their resources are depleted, then they are given allowance in order that they will not be there's so much loss of money for them. Number 5 is depreciation. And what is this depreciation? Depreciation is about the wear and tear of the property, plant, and equipments that the company are using in business. Okay, so number 6, we have entertainment, amusement, and recreation. This entertainment, amusement, and recreation has a limit. You cannot claim all the entertainment, amusement, and recreation that you incur, even if those are all receipted or those are all legitimate. The limit is if you are engaged in the sale of goods, 1/2 of 1% of the sale of goods and services. If you are dealing with the sale of services, 1% of the sale of services is the limit for your representation and entertainment expenses. Number 7 is friends benefits. What are those friends benefits? Friends benefits are given to the managerial and supervisory position employees of the corporation. The friends benefits are subject to final tax, and that final tax is shouldered by the company. Number 8 are interest. Interest, the requirement should be coming from the accredited financing institutions, and interest has also some limit with the interest arbitrage. So my experience when I was still auditing with this taxpayers, for 29 years I do audit work and investigations. For as a reminder, please be sure that when you claim interest, you have loans, you have loans payable, loan payable, because you cannot claim interest if you have no accounts payable. Okay? So interest, there is also a legal rate of interest. Do not claim interest which is very very high interest. That is not that will be disallowed later on. Number 9, we have losses. And what are these losses all about? These are the losses that we incur when we are doing our business. These losses can be due to fire, due to turbulence, due to theft. But there are requirements when you are going to claim for these losses. The losses should not be compensated by insurance company, and you are going to report that within 45 days so that the BAR can determine, assign it to the examiner, and then have an ocular inspection of the losses, and then the examiner will make a report in order that you can claim it in your income tax return. Number 10 is the pension trust. This is mandatory, especially for the employers with employees, so that this pension trust are the benefits that should be given to the employee once they retire. There is already an amount that will pay for their benefits. And then number 11, we have rental. Rental is for the use of the facilities. So rental is subject to 5% withholding tax. Who is going to pay for the 5% withholding tax on rental? It's always the lessee, not the lessor. So what the lessee will do, deduct the 5% payment for the rent, remit that to the BAR, pay only 95% of the rent to the lessor, to the owner of the facilities or building, and the other 5% is the certificate or the BAR Form 2307, which the lessor, when filing its income tax return, they can also claim the advance payment of taxes of the 5% on the withholding tax on rental. Number 12, we have research and development. Research and development can be claimed by the corporation, especially it is very important for the company to have research and development in order to improve its products, in order to improve its processes. But be sure that research and development is proper, the claim is proper, and it should only benefit the current year. If it will benefit future years, then it should be amortized for the research and development. There are so many issues on the research and development now, especially if the research and development will develop a new asset. So that we will cater that in some other discussions for the research and development. But for me, research and development is very crucial for the improvement of the company, especially when it comes to the development of its product. Number 13, salaries and wages, very important. Salaries, wages, and allowances. There are so many requirements or compliance requirements for the salaries and wages. And what are the requirements for salaries and wages? You have to prepare your payroll. You have to pay for the mandatory contributions for your employees, and salaries and wages are regulated by the DOLE, or the Department of Labor and Employment. For the number 14, we have the SSS GSIS for about its DMF or Pag-ibig and other contributions. Who will pay for this? It is the employer, for the employer's share. And what is the amount of these contributions? Only the employer share. When you claim for SSS and other contributions, do not claim all the amount remitted, because part of that remittance is the amount paid as share of the employee. Number 15, we have taxes and licenses. There are taxes and licenses that you cannot claim as an expense, just like income tax. You can never claim income tax as an expense in the computation of your income tax return. Another tax that you cannot claim is also the value-added tax. Why? Because value-added tax has a contra account. It has an input and output mechanism. So definitely, you cannot claim that as an expense in your income tax return. So what are the taxes and licenses example that you can claim? The percentage tax, the registration fee, the mayor's permit, the registration of the vehicles in the LTO. You can claim that as an taxes and licenses. But also a reminder, when you claim taxes and licenses, only the basic tax. Do not claim the penalties. Why? Because it will be disallowed. Why? Because that will be charged to your rate and earnings. For purposes of computing the tax, there's penalties for taxes and licenses should not be included. Number 16, transportation and travel. Transportation and travel should be related to business. Okay. Number 17, other deductions subject to withholding tax and other expenses. So letter A, we have janitorial and messengerial services. These are services which are subject to the 2% expanded withholding tax. Also, professional fees. So if the professional individual, then the withholding is 5% and 10%. But if firm, non-individual, then 10% and 15%. We also have the security services, which are also subject to the 2% withholding tax, but the basis is only net of salaries on the gross income of security agencies. So if you have other expenses, what are the other expenses that included or not mentioned? We have the repairs and maintenance, we have the utilities. You are going to include that here in the portion available, and then deduct it from your gross income. In Schedule 2, we have the special allowable itemized deductions, if any, and then you are going to put the description and the legal basis if you still have some itemized deductions that you are going to claim. So total special allowable itemized deductions. And then we have also the page number 4, which is the last page of this annual income tax return for corporations. We have taxpayer identification number and also registered name as the first information required that you are going to fill up. Then we have Schedule 3, the computation of net operating loss carryover or NOLCO. What are these net operating loss carryover? These are the losses that you incurred while you are operating a business in the previous taxable year. So since you are allowed to carry it over and to claim the NOLCO, the net operating loss carryover, for the next 3 years, then if you have some losses incurred, you can still carry that over. So this is under Schedule 3. Number 1, gross income less ordinary allowable itemized deductions, and number 3 is the net operating loss. And then Schedule 3, we have computation of available net operating loss carryover or the NOLCO. So year incurred. Why very important that you are going to put here the year incurred and the amount and the NOLCO applied? Why? Because in order that the BA will see immediately if you claim that over for more than 3 years. Why? Because if the net operating loss is already 3 years, since it is not exhausted, it is not consumed, then you are going to write it down. You cannot claim that anymore. Continuation. NOLCO expired, NOLCO applied current year, and then the net operating loss unapplied. So if there is still a balance, the unapplied NOLCO, you are going to show that in the income tax return. So that the total NOLCO. We have here under section Schedule 4, the computation of minimum corporate income tax. And what is this minimum corporate income tax? As I told you, this is the tax, 2% tax on the gross income. Okay, so year 1, normal income tax as adjusted, and the MCIT and the excess MCIT over normal income tax. Why it is shown here? You are going to compare the normal income tax and the minimum corporate income tax. Why? Because in paying the corporate income tax, whichever is higher between the normal income tax or the MCIT. But what is unique with the MCIT is that the MCIT can still be used if it is in excess of the normal income tax. It can still be used for a period of 3 years. Okay, so total is MCIT, there is any. And then on Schedule 6, we have the reconciliation of net income per books against taxable income as attached. Why there is a reconciliation? Because net income or loss per books, sometimes there are non-taxable income. So we are going to put some reconciliation here so that the user of this financial statement or this return can easily understand that the taxable income and the accounting income. So net income or loss per books, you have to add the non-deductible expenses or taxable other income, the total, and then deduct the non-taxable income and income subjected to final tax, because they will not be subjected to the normal income tax or the regular income tax rate, and then the special deductions if there are any. Okay, so we have discussed to you the annual income tax. This is the 1702 RT, regular income tax. I just want to highlight with you the revenue memorandum circulars that deals with the determination of the MCIT. You can have it, you can see that in the website of the BAR. This revenue memorandum circular number 4-2003, this determines the gross receipts and the cost of services per industry. So this is very important, so that when you compute for the 2% MCIT, you cannot just put the expenses as a deduction against your sales in order to arrive at your gross income. You are guided by this revenue memorandum circular number 4-2003. And what are the industries that are covered by this memorandum circular? We have the banks and the non-bank financial intermediaries performing quasi-banking activities. So they are guided as to what are the expenses that should be included as a direct cost in order to determine the gross income. Another kind of industry is the insurance and pension funding companies. Also, finance companies and other financial intermediaries not performing quasi-banking activities. We also have brokers of securities, excluding banks. Also, customs insurance, real estate, immigration, and commercial brokers. Also, general engineering and or building contractors, common carriers or transportation contractors, hotel, motel, rest, pension, lodging house, and resort operators, food service establishment, lessors of property, telephone and telegraph, electric, gas, and water utilities, and radio and or television broadcasting. In this revenue memorandum circular number 4-2003, will define what are the expenses that can be deducted against the sales in order to arrive at the gross income. So this is a very, very useful revenue memorandum circular or laws. And then we have the revenue memorandum circular number 24-2008, and this pertains also to what are the deductions against the gross income in order to arrive at the gross income subject to 2% MCIT. So, for the cost of the services, we have the salaries and employees, benefits of personnel, consultants, and specialists directly rendering the services, and also cost of facilities directly utilized in providing the service, such as depreciation or rental of equipment used, and cost of supplies. So, those are the expenses that you can claim as cost of services in order to arrive at the gross income, which is subject to the 2% MCIT or minimum corporate income tax. So that is, this is also requested by some comments on the previous topics that we have. So what are the attachment in this 1702 RT regular? The attachment that you are going to place on this when you file it in the income tax returns are the financial statements. And what are the financial statements for corporations? We have the income tax return, we have the balance sheet, we have the statement of cash flow, and also the statement of changes in stockholders' equity. And aside from that, if you are a corporation, then it is required that there is a CPA certificate or the auditor certificate of the CPA that audited your financial statements, and also the certificate as to how many stockholders have 100 or more shares of stocks, and also the statement of management responsibility to accompany the income tax return. There are disclosures, there are notes to financial statements that should be attached also in the income tax return. And don't forget, if you are claiming tax credits, if you are claiming withholding taxes, advance payment of taxes, then attach also the receipts and the certificate of withholding, the BR from 2307. So that's the topic that we can give to you today, and hope that you are enlightened for this 1702 regular income tax rate. Our next vlog would be on the mixed income on the corporations and also the non-stock non-profit corporations. Thank you.